Hello, Yes But Why listeners. This is your host, Amy Jordan. Hope you're all having a wonderful day thus far. Welcome to Yes But Why episode 326, my chat with Austin improviser Kristen Henn. But first, let's talk about Audible. You know, Yes But Why podcast is sponsored by Audible. If you go now to audibletrial.com/Yes But Why to get your account today, you will be supporting Yes But Why as well. Audible is the app everybody's using to listen to books. Audible is the place to hear all the new stories, or where you can read all the new celebrity memoirs. You know your feed has been covered with stories of that new Matthew Perry book. Check it out. It's really him telling you about all the celebrities he hates. Or maybe you heard Jeanette McCurdy doing the rounds on the podcast talking about her new book, I'm Glad My Mom Died. On Audible, Jeanette is the one reading you the book, so you really get to find out what all the craziness is about. On Audible, there's hundreds of titles to choose from, all included in your membership. And each month, you get a credit to use to check out a new book. So go now to audibletrial.com/Yes But Why to sign up for your account today. And now let's talk about my guest this week. This week on Yes But Why, I spoke with Kristen Henn, the director of Austin-based Improv for Kids programs Excused Absence Comedy and Move Your Tail. In our conversation, we chatted about confidence, storytelling, and thoughtfulness. Listen in for Kristen's story about the tornado, her own life story's inciting incident. I now present to you Yes But Why episode 326. Kristen Henn presents whimsy and wonder as she produces improv for kids. Enjoy! I'm Amy Jordan, and this is
Yes But Why.
Yes, but why?
Yes, but why?
Yes, but why?
Yes, but why?
Yes But Why.
Yes, but why?
Yes, but why?
This is the Yes But Why podcast.
I think that for me, it was always like, let's establish the base reality and see where we can go from here. And I was sort of I was kind of a controlling kind of kid. I think I see kids like me all the time who just want to direct everything, and it kind of pushes other kids away because they're like, well, sometimes. Other times they're like, hell yeah, let's do it. Okay. Sometimes it's a relief for kids to like have somebody who like sets the thing. Mm-hmm. In my neighborhood, I lived in Wichita Falls when I was a kid till I was 10. There were other children that I played with regularly. And so we had a lot of, there were neighbor kids who my little brother and I would go over and play with them. And our main game was Aunt Kathy. And so Aunt Kathy was a game where it's basically playing house, but we take turns being the starring role of Aunt Kathy. So it's kind of like a sitcom, but with a rotating cast. And I was always the oldest of those kids. And so I would kind of, I don't know, again, like I got to kind of call the shots with a lot of it. And so it was fun. It's fun if you call the shots, right? And
I also like being in charge. Don't feel bad.
Yes. Preaching to the choir. And also, I spent a lot of time alone. And so one thing that was very different then than now, although I still think some kids get to do it, is, I walked forever, like in my neighborhood all by myself. I went, like when I was 5 years old, I remember I was in kindergarten and I'd met a friend in kindergarten who lived a couple blocks away and telling my grandmother I was going to go to her house. And my grandmother saying, be careful. And me saying, it's okay. I have this stick. Like, it's not like it was in the country. It was like a suburban neighborhood, really, but I was like, I'm fine. But I was very, so like a lot of ADHD children, I was very much like, not about the facts, but about what could make the facts more interesting. So I might begin with, well, here's the thing, but if it didn't get the response I needed, I would expand the universe, which I think is something that I really had to learn what that did. Because on the one hand, what it did was it allowed me to be somebody who I am a creative person, and I am like a story-driven person, but I also had to learn that people don't like it when you tell lies. So if you just keep insisting this is what happened, and they're like, yeah, no, I don't think that you act like. I so clearly remember telling the story that I still imagine it happened, that because that was the other thing I could do, is I could like tell the story so good that I was like, this happened. I know it did. But this is a story that I don't know how old I was, like 6 or 7. Another thing is when I was 7 in Wichita Falls, there was this huge tornado. And so I have very clear markers of how old I was when things happened, because there's before the tornado and after. And so the tornado was the best thing that ever happened. I'll talk about that in a minute. But also the worst. I love disasters. So I told my mother that I had been in the front yard singing the song, Singing in the Rain, and that when I was singing the song, cars pulled up to watch me sing and to enjoy my performance. And that specifically a man came out in a yellow raincoat and was so delighted by what happened. I also like, did that? I don't know, whatever. But like in my mind, I can still see that my front yard performance, you know.
Isn't that wild, the idea that like memory and stories that we tell ourselves, like how powerful our brain is to like create that? Because I feel that. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. I
have had deep emotion about an idea of a thing happening that isn't happening, but I'm imagining it happening, and I can feel it, you know,
Absolutely,
like so much. So I totally get what you're saying. I also find it hilarious because my child, who is 5, does exactly what you were saying, where you're like, oh, what's that? Yeah, let me tell you a story about something that happened. And then this guy came, and I'm like, okay, well, I was right with you. That's not what happened, you know? But I appreciate that. And I think it's hard because there is that that black and white where you're trying to tell kids not to lie, you know, and I get that, but there's also something deeply creative about children, you know,
I think I think improv saved my life. I'm one of those people, you know, it made everything okay, because I realized that, and I was already kind of this way because I had been a child who struggled a little bit connecting to people, and I could always recognize another storyteller. So if I'm with a kid who's a storyteller, it's very easy for me to say, oh yeah, and to like jump in and collaborate with them. There's never any reason to say you're lying. I know that's shutting them down. It's different if somebody says, Jimmy punched me in the eye, and you're like, did that happen? Let's find out, because that's an accusation, and we need to, maybe you feel like you got punched, and that's different than being punched. Let's figure it out, whatever something happened here. You know what I really came away with? For better or worse, I believe that details often don't matter. Sometimes it's the larger principle that we need to focus on. We also have to follow rules and be respectful and blah, blah, blah. But I think
But you know what? Those rules, they change. You know, like things that were not okay when we were kids are okay. Like the idea, you're telling me this story, you walked 2 blocks to your friend's house. I'm not letting my child who's 5 walk 2 blocks anywhere by himself. Like it's the idea of, and those are details, like you said, it's the shades of gray, you know what I mean, that change bit to bit, but the essence of this kid would like to play with their friend down the street still there. Also, the kid feels confident that they can take care of themselves, also a big thing. And in fact, whenever my child acts like he feels capable of taking care of something, whether or not he actually could, I love that. Because I think that makes him a capable person, because the belief in himself and the belief in yourself that you were like, Yeah, this stick, no problem. I got it. That was like foundational. You believing you can do it and can take care of yourself is a huge foundation bit that I also have, but I didn't realize everyone didn't have.
Oh.
Right? Like, because my mom is so, I mean, my mom is like a rock. She is like a stalwart, solid woman. She took care of everyone around her, and she was like, she was just like so on point and very confident. And I just thought that's what you were. Right. And my dad was a little less so, but he was always everyone liked him in his friend group. You know, like my mom could talk to strangers and be very confident. My dad wouldn't talk to strangers, but with his friend group, he was totally like, hey, what's going on? I'm the leader of this crowd. And so I felt like that's just what people are like. You just are confident and you talk to your friends and you lead conversations, and that's how human beings are, right? But it's not. Like, it's crazy how it turns out there are people who are like, I don't know, could I do that? I'm like, what do you mean, could you do that? Of course you could do that. You know, it blew my mind years later when I met people and they were doubting themselves, because I was like, this is literally my base. Me knowing that I can take care of it is my base layer. Yeah. You know? So I find that the idea that you're making stories, connecting with people, being, you know, living your life out, you know, with your friends and doing this kind of thing, it's like the base reality of sort of a confident performer, right? Like how you get started. And there's something so nice, like from a parent perspective of a child, to know that your child is capable in that way. Yeah. Like, I'm like, he'll be fine. I go, he's got confidence and he thinks he's capable. At the end of the day, even if I taught him nothing else, that would buoy him through everything. Yeah. Like, and it's great. I love the idea of that. And before I insist that you talk about the tornado, I also love the idea of kind meets kind. Like that when you see your storyteller friends, you're like, I see you. Yeah. Because I get that too. In any scenario, anywhere I am, and I walk into a group and then I know who the people are. And it's like, okay, great. Or at least, like, you know, you teach a corporate workshop and there's like two that are getting into it with you and everybody else is kind of like, meh, meh. And you're like, this is fine. No problem. These two will help me out. You know, like, but you can like see them right away. I love that. The idea of that is super on point. Now,
well, don't worry, I'll get to the tornado. But that makes two things. I wanted to follow up two things. One was, we were talking about memory, and you can completely, you can put yourself there again or have the feelings of it. So that serves me so well as a performer, being able to do that. I've done improv shows on a completely bare stage where I can still tell you where the tree was and where the table was in relationship to that, and how, like, it's a fully formed location that we visited in that scene. And I am grateful that I can do that, and sometimes wish I could spend my life there, you know, just like, let's just keep spinning the thing and doing the thing and exploring it. Obviously it's not sustainable and you're not always in the right headspace to do it, but it feels good when you do.
It is hard to avoid if you know you have the talent for fantasy, to try not to live in a fantasy land, because it can be so much more pleasant than the real world, you know? So the idea that you have that extra special skill, it's hard to avoid.
Well, and I think that the way it serves me best, though, and I think the reason I can do the work I do is because you said your superpower was that people will unburden themselves to you. They'll share information with you prior to the recording. You mentioned this. And so for some reason, my superpower is that I can envelop other people in the world and bring them along. I think of myself as kind of like the backdoor Pied Piper. Like, things are working here we go, guys, let's go this way. And it's so fun and so wonderful to put out the idea of, here's what we can do, you guys. And when people say yes to it and come with you and we build it together, it's so great. It feels better than anything. And I'm often surprised that adults are as willing to do it as they are. But with children and teenagers, it's very easy. Like one of my greatest joys in the world is to be out in public and make eye contact with a little kid and be like, right? And they're like, yeah. Like we just have a moment of like, this is what we're doing right here is weird, right? And they're like, absolutely. I don't know why it works, but it works for me. It's harder for me to have that connection with adults, but I do sometimes have it. I have adult friends. I don't know.
Adults are so much harder. I have lots of theories as to why.
Bring more, whatever. But with the other thing you mentioned about corporate workshops and finding the people in the workshop who will be your allies or your helpers, when I always find that in classes as well, particularly because I do a lot of improv that is not just for performance, like applied improv stuff. And so I went to this AISD arts partner meetup thing. Also, shout out to AISD. They are really doing their best to give arts partners as much opportunity as possible. I'm very grateful to them. But at this thing, teachers would come by and, you get that thing. They're like, improv. No, I don't think so. It's too hard. My kids won't want to perform. And you're like, okay, I know. But so I always say, listen, even if everyone in the class is saying, no, I'm too scared, I'm too cool, whatever, I guarantee there will be one kid in that class who's like, hell yeah, I'll talk. Like you find the kid right away, or you make the teacher do it. And you can always, I don't know, I love solving the problem of how are we going to make the party happen. It's fun.
You're the host of the party. All right.
I think that's it. It's like Pied Piper host situation. That's what I'm always trying to, I don't know.
You're spinning dreams.
Yeah, kind of. I'm juggling the ideas, trying to get everybody on board.
But they are. That's the beauty of it. Is that like that's your superpower? Is that you spin it and then they're in it. Oh,
yes. But it doesn't always work. Like, sometimes you go in and the thing that has worked 100 times, there's something. Is it karma? Is it energy? Did I put something out there when I walked in the room that that dissolved the power? I don't know. You talk to teachers and performers all the time who say, this thing that has always been a surefire deal, I did it today and they looked at me like I was a fool. And so you just have to, the other great thing about working a long time is that after a while you're like, yeah, we failed. I mean, that's also the lesson of improv, but you still have to fail a lot before you can be told failing is the greatest gift, but that doesn't really matter until you actually receive that gift a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, it's true. You still when you fail.
Ooh, failing. It's a hard one though. It is a gift, but it's like a gift with barbs. You know what I mean? Like at the time, and that's the other part, is like whenever you try to teach somebody about like how failing is super important, it's like I now that I have my child, I have this like idea of honesty in the way that I explain to him things, where I'm like, no, it definitely is terrible. Like nobody wants to fail. You're going to hate it. It's not going to be good. In the moment, worst, terrible. Potentially everyone in the room will tell you how terrible it is. You don't know. That's possible. But later, after you've reflected and taken time to remove yourself of the shame of it, because I get it, it's true. You can get stuff out of it. And the other part, which also kind of stinks, because this is actually how our brains work, but we learn better from negative stimuli than from positive stimuli. Someone could tell you every day how pretty you are. You are not going to hear it ever, right? But if one day someone tells you that they don't like your hair and you do like your hair and you're like, what? what do you mean you don't like my hair? My hair's great. And then this like negative thing that this person like gave to you made you react in such a way that you're like, turns out I really like my hair. And I didn't know that was a thing until this person challenged me in this moment. It was this negative situation that like spurred in you this reaction that then turned out to be a positive thing where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Well, and I think too that so there is negative feedback that you're like, I disagree with you. I don't think you're right about that, which is nice. And then there's also the thing when you're like, I'm not sure if I agree, but then when you look back and you're like, well, what? Quantitatively, what has the feedback been in general? What's my experience been with when I look back at what happened? Was I happy or sad with what happened? And there are still some times when I have gotten what I feel was unfair negative feedback that I'm like, yeah, I hope you see how wrong you were. Like a bit, that, but mostly I feel like I'm kind of lucky that I'm now at a point, I hope, that when I get negative feedback, it's because I was being obnoxious or the thing I said didn't make sense, or, like it's, you get to the, or whatever, like I'm so wise now, or whatever. But but
you spend enough time, you're with different people and you kind of realize how to take it.
Yeah, that like maybe that's what you're seeing right now, or maybe that came from a place of whatever. Like another great thing about improv was I learned to be teased. I used to be so sensitive, but what I learned was, well, if people are teasing you, it's because they see you. Which like and this wasn't cruel teasing. These were my friends poking fun at things that I was doing, and I was like, oh, they're paying attention to me. Okay, that's what this is. This is not a list of my failures. And I need to laugh at these things too, because I will be happier if I do. But I spend so much time, because I now teach all the time and rarely perform. I get very involved I get real deep in my head about theory and about ideas, and here's how we can do it, and how can we solve this problem, and I had this incredible luxury over the pandemic where I worked with basically like 15 great teenagers on Zoom twice a week. They were it's also weird to say it, but they were kind of like, they were like my little theater company. And I tried very hard to, I always, keep in mind the lessons of don't be a dictator director or whatever. Like it's always collaboration, but also I was the grown up, and we were all very bored and lonely. So I was able to experiment with so many formats, with so many like ways of teaching. And I came out of the pandemic with this new way of approaching teaching, which is, anyways. But my point is, I still sometimes talk about it too much. I'm like, here's the idea, follow me. This is an interesting thing. And I was doing that in an adult class that I'm teaching. And one of the women in the class turned to me and said something like, oh, thanks for trying to be my therapist, Kristen, or something like that. And I was like, ooh, like it shut me down. I was like, did I overstep? Am I being self-indulgent? And I might have, but I also think she was having a hard time. I don't think I was wrong.
Improv as a performance, as something to learn, even taking classes, is as close to therapy as you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
I mean,
and also maybe she was right in telling me I'm glad she told me this is my response to what you're saying right now. But what she was really telling me was, this is how I feel right now. Like you're trying to fix me and I don't want to be fixed. Or it's not whatever. I don't know. I have no idea what she's going through. But
Right. Well, that's the other thing too. Like we're working with these large groups of people. And yes, like we mentioned before, we find the people who are similar. We connect immediately with the people who are similar to us so that we can have anchors in the room. But then everybody else is some other reaction, some other way of looking at the world. Like I mentioned earlier, I only knew the way of the world of my parents. And because they were so confident and gregarious, I thought everybody was confident and gregarious. And that is not the case. And
but
the
what a
idea
gift
of that,
Yeah.
I mean, what a wild thing to find out, right? Also, I did theater. Those were the people I hung out with too. Like I did high school theater, musicals, right? Of course, loud and gregarious. Got it. And so I just thought that's the way people are. But yeah, like you said, I do more teaching than performing for sure. And the idea of trying to navigate different personalities, different ways that they receive the information, where they're starting, what preconceived notions they have of what they're about to do. And then, as if that isn't enough, their own personal fear and shame on top of all of that. You never know what little thing that you said that just really made that woman see something about herself. And because of that, she lashed back out at you in that way to say, oh, you got me. I can't believe it,
Or maybe she was seeing something in me. Like I was being self-indulgent, but I also think that, or I don't know if I was. I don't know. We're all just
you don't know.
figuring it out, right?
Yeah, and you never know how people are receiving your information. That's the other weird thing about being a performer, being a person in the performing world, creating your whole situation. We can never force a reaction. We can make people look at us, and then they will, but then however they take that in is theirs, right? Yeah. It's almost one of my favorite, there's an Ani DeFranco song where she mentions you can listen to my songs and hear my story, or you can listen to the song and see the reflection of yourself. Yeah. And I always think about that when I'm creating a show of any kind, is that I'm creating something and I have this very strong idea of what it is. But at the end of the day, what I put down in front of you, you can either see for itself or see what themes involved in that are reflected back in whatever's going on in your life. And usually that's what people are doing. I say more often than not, people are just reflecting themselves back from different things. Mm-hmm. And so there's no way to be able to control, and I think that's part of in the world that we live in right now, we're trying to make sure we give everyone a safe space. And at the end of the day, I think the way to give people a safe space is just to say, I acknowledge whatever happens as it happens, and I'm here and will listen to everyone's reactions. I might have done it wrong, and I'm going to do it differently the next time if you mention that doesn't vibe with you, but that's just because you're listening. Like you're talking about your friends who tease you. They're listening. They're paying attention. Yeah. They wouldn't harass you for how you say the word so many times if they didn't actually notice, right? Totally. That person was listening to you so deep and it got them. And they were like, oh, dang. And that reaction, oh man, it is super interesting.
The tornado? Or, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Get up in it. Yeah, for sure. I was I could ask other questions, but tell me about this tornado and how it was the best, quote unquote.
I really feel like it is the thing that made me who I am. Ooh. So it was the inciting incident in the story of Kristen Henn's life. So So I was born in Dallas, and then we lived in Duncanville, and then we moved to Wichita Falls when I was 3. And my little brother was born when I was 4, and I just had a normal little kid life. It was we could run around the neighborhood, whatever. Wichita Falls was very I'm sure it's actually not a pretty town at all, but my mother's highly social, So she was very busy talking to people and doing things, and she's always the president of everything. And so I just kind of got to be on my own and roam around. And so on the day on April 9th, 1979, I came home from school, which I guess was first grade, and we had a babysitter, and her name was Marilyn. And she was a grown-up babysitter, not a teenager, but I don't know how grown-up really. And Mark, my little brother, was already home, and Mark was 3, but he was still not potty trained, and he was wearing a diaper, and I would always give him shit about that, and say that when he got married, his wife did blah, 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 blah. So Mark and I were fighting. He was making me mad, so I pushed him down, landed on his stomach, and I bit him on the butt through his diaper. And the babysitter, Marilyn, was real mad, and she was like, get out, go outside and play. And I was like, all right. So I left.
Get out, she said.
I'm sure she didn't say get out. I'm sure she was nice. Well, no, I think I pissed her off. Like,
sure.
I don't know. I think I was a very annoying kid, maybe. Some people probably thought I was charming and delightful. Other people were like, please stop. So I took
I feel like that's the case with all kids. So, you know.
You're probably right. So I walked around the block to my friend Elizabeth Barry's house, knocked on the door. Mom said, come in, hang out. So we start like having a snack. We're watching Popeye on TV. And then they break in with the news and are like, sorry to interrupt this broadcast. A tornado has just landed in Burke Burnett or whatever it is, like it's across the border in Oklahoma. And so Elizabeth's mom was like, you should probably go home. There's a tornado that's landed, 6 miles away. And I was like, all right. So I leave and I walk home as the air is turning completely still. And the birds are no longer chirping. And I get to the house just as my mom is pulling in, which is good. And Marilyn's like, I'm going to leave. And Mom's like, you cannot leave. There's a tornado coming. And we're like, where's my dad? And so my mom's kind of frantic a little, or I don't know if she was frantic. I don't know. I don't remember that. I just remember that I was like, what's going on? And so then luckily my dad pulls in just as on the television, they say, the tornado has touched the ground in Wichita Falls, take cover. And then all the electricity went out. Total silence. My dad walks in the house. My parents are like, the tornado is coming. What do we do? They're not from Wichita Falls. They had not been through a tornado before. We decide to get in the middle closet, my brother's closet in the middle of the house. So it's my mom, my dad, me, Mark, and Marilyn. Mark's still just in a diaper. And we're there, and my mom says, oh, Stan, I left my rings on the kitchen windowsill. And so my dad's like, okay. So my dad gets up and I follow him, and we go into the kitchen, and he gets the rings and then also puts our dog in the laundry room. And then we walk back through the house into my parents' room. Because at the time they were saying you should open windows during a tornado so the house wouldn't explode. But I don't think that's actually the case. I don't think we're told that anymore. So anyways, I remember jumping up and down on my parents' bed, looking out the window as the sky turned green. So then we go and we get in the closet, and we're sitting there for a second. And then we hear like a train coming. And my dad said, that's the tornado. And my mom said, no, that's the furnace turning on. No, it was the freaking tornado. And so then suddenly it's just like, and we sit there for a minute, and then it's gone. And so Mark's room where we were, only the window was broken. And the room next to us, the office, unhurt. But the rest of the house was gone.
Gone!
And so, there was still the frame of it or whatever. But the roof had been taken. In my bedroom, my parents' bedroom, the other bathroom was all tile, and the bathtub, like hard stuff stayed. But the den, part of it was still kind of there. So we were able to come out of Mark's room, walk down what had been the hallway, but was now open on the other side, and turned into our entry hall, which was a marble floor. And the door was still there, but it's like to the left, everything was just kind of crushed. And we could still walk under our front porch, and it was brick steps. It was red brick. And we walked down, and as we look up, everything was different. It was the most incredible moment. And we went back to inside, I guess. We started to look for neighbors. Also, all of this, when I tell the story to like kids all the time. You can probably tell this is a story I've told before. But when I told this story to my parent, like in front of my parents a couple of years ago, my mom was like, "We did not let you follow your daddy and all these." And I was like, "Yes, I followed him." She's like, "I think you're making it up." I was like, "No, I know all this happened. I know I saw these things and felt these things." So they put me and Mark and some other neighborhood kids into the office because it wasn't torn down. And I made the other kids wear a football helmet and like a fake fire helmet. I was in charge as usual. And we had to spend that night in that room, and little by little, and people were freaked out. People were missing. Like our neighbors had to go look for their kid, and just, nothing was the same. Everything stopped. It was all new. And we ended up having to, my dad bought or rented, or I think maybe bought a mobile home, which a lot of people did. And so we had to go live in this mobile home park. But we would come back and be there when they were working on the house. And even when we moved back into the house, it took years to rebuild the neighborhood. It was wonderful because everything was empty. You could go wherever you wanted. They were building storm cellars or tornado cellars. So me and my friends would play, this is awful, but we would play Anne Frank and hide in the cellar. That's the kind of kid I was.
They make you read it in school. I mean, you know.
Well, I already knew the story. I was obsessed with the Holocaust when I was a kid. But but it was you found all these things. There was this sense of total freedom and possessing everything. Nothing belonged to anyone. You could have whatever you wanted. You could go wherever again, I'm just talking about piles of dirt that were unattended, but it felt incredible. And all these weird things that would be halfway built and left there. And it made me love the uncurated landscape. Just get in there and do whatever you want. I love to be unseen. I love to go in and find the interesting thing. And I don't know, it's exciting. I just told that story for half an hour. No. And but that story is that event made it so when bad things happened, also when you're a kid and bad things happen, the stakes were so different for me than for my parents. And you hear about kids who went through Katrina, who their parents were devastated, but the kids were fine because they're like, yeah, we got free sandwiches from the Red Cross truck. I got to eat chips again and again after the tornado because the Red Cross trucks were handing them out.
How old were you? You were 7?
7.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought about that. I think you're right that kids have a different way of receiving what's going on. I mean, because it's their first time. They don't have any other ideas about how it should be or what would happen. So they're just reacting, I guess that's fine. I wonder. So
my parents made me feel safe. I mean, I might have felt fear of the storm because it was an unknown, but I never felt fear of being left to my own devices. I never felt fear of, it's our parents do give us this sense of, my parents were very confident people who were well, if we say it's this way, it will be this way. Not that they weren't being jerks. They were just saying, in my experience, things work out. Let's keep working on it. And I was not made. There were definitely, I'm sure there was tension. I'm sure bad things happen sometimes, but I always had food. I always knew, I was not in fear of being left alone. And that's the main thing.
I like the idea that this experience, though, made you feel like it was your first big experience with a huge thing that could have gone very badly. I'm sure you got that vibe from the emotional reaction of, your parents, or maybe just Marilyn, who is an outlier in this scenario. She could have been screaming. Who knows? Like the idea of how you react. You look at the adults and you see how they do it, and you're like, all right, that's how you do it.
Totally.
And like we were saying, you guys being so young, there's a resilience. And also, like, if I've been through this, check, I made it through, I'm still doing okay. Anything that's less than that is like, hey man, I made it through the tornado. I got this.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is a big problem. You're like, is it though? I don't think that it is.
Right. Well, I also think, so it's like with the pandemic and in any other times that things have gone awry for the world, I always feel like I feel better equipped to navigate a chaotic, unknown situation than I do the known. I feel like I do best when the rules are taken away. I'm fine. And other people struggle, and I'm like, no, guys, this is okay. Like, and it might be a contrary thing in me when other people are like panicking. I'm like, no, we don't need to panic. But I think it's because I struggled very hard for most of my life to understand the rules that other people were following. I didn't get it. I didn't know why people were mad about stuff. I didn't know why people were angry. Like, that's usually what it was. I didn't know why people would be upset about things. And so I just couldn't figure it out. And so maybe that taught me to dwell confidently within uncertainty. So when things became uncertain, I was like, oh, now I can help you because I got this. I don't know. It's also why I love post-apocalyptic movie. Like, I'm all about yeah, I'm the person who no, that's not to be full of myself. Whatever. But
I'm great at stuff. Did you know?
No, but I'm not great at stuff. But what I am great at is knowing that things don't have to be perfect, that things are better. Well, I mean, this is what I say in improv too all the time. Like, perfection is boring and unattainable and if you're trying to be perfect, you will never be happy. What's interesting, what's funny? The imperfect. We're shining a spotlight on the imperfect thing, and we find the truth of what's interesting there. So whenever I was saying, like, when I was a kid and I told lies, I always thought, like, one thing I took away was like I remember getting older and thinking, well, truth is malleable. Truth is subjective. There's not, which is something you were saying earlier, but, and that there's a greater truth. Like, so there's the thing that people are saying, but there's the thing they mean. And so I think it took me until it was my late 20s to be like, these two things go together. This is, for me, this is why I can navigate the world, because I finally quit expecting other people to adhere to one single truth. And so stories, which are kind of storytelling is kind of my driving thing. I find that what is so rewarding about storytelling, or about hearing stories, telling stories, etc., is that they allow us to shine a spotlight on that greater truth, the thing that's consistently true, without worrying about the details. And I also love that stories can be repurposed to tell the truth of the time. I love how I love to see versions of things, the same story over and over again, because it allows us, it's just a filter for the true thing. If we all know that the Three Little Pigs involves these steps, then we're free in the rest of it. Like the rest of it is we've just been set up to find the essential reality of where we are today, which is so fun.
Yeah.
And what's great about improv, so it's one thing to do that as a story that I'm telling alone or someone else is telling alone. But when you're doing it in improv, we are matching, this group is having to collaboratively match their truth in the moment to things that we recognize as standard parts of like standard stories. You know, is this a restaurant scene? What's the, we've agreed on that. Within that, where do we find the thing that is uniquely true to us today? And so, anyways.
I feel like the idea of what you're describing right now with improv is totally connected to this idea of learning how to deal with wild situations like a tornado. Like the idea that you feel confident when things go, when there's chaos, and, you're able to get in there in the same way that like improv has that, storytelling without a net kind of vibe, like we're going to do this and it could go anyway. And you have to have that like willingness to deal with that kind of stuff and to take in.
It forces you to be in the moment, which is so great because you can tell your brain to shut up and just be here. And I love it. And then wonderful things happen. Yeah. Also, I panicked a great deal during the pandemic. So it's not like I was, like when bad things happen, it's not like all the bad goes away, but it's like, it's knowing that there's the possibility of total disaster, but for now, let's just keep making things happen. Let's say yes to what's happening in the moment. Try to make good choices.
You know what? Even though I too was comparing the pandemic and the tornado in my head as you were telling the story, just now when you said it that way, it occurs to me that it's almost like the timeline of it is much harder, right? So like an improv scene, this improv scene is very likely to be 4 minutes or less.
Right.
You're not going to be doing this forever, right? So you can try stuff, you can do things, you can put ideas out there that maybe don't work at all, right? Because it's finite, it's quick, it's going to be over soon. If you were like, hey, we're renting out this Broadway theater for 6 years and you're going to improvise a brand new play at the beginning and then you have to use that play to inform everything you do for the next 6 years, it would be so much harder because there's all this, there's more time and you had this quick reaction up top, but then you have to live in what you did and how that works. And I feel like that's what the pandemic kind of was. So when you were like, I panicked, then I was like, yeah, but very likely 6 months in, like, you know what I mean? Or I was thinking the other day how, like a friend of mine called me yesterday and was like, hey, I got COVID. And the lack of fear that I felt for her, I was just like, oh, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
And then this voice in my head was like, remember when it wasn't all right? Like, remember when you didn't know? Like if she had called you 2 years ago and told you the same thing, you would have cried for the potential death of your friend. Like we didn't know, right? But time passed. And then we felt different about it, which is also why the childhood thing I think is helpful. And I swear I'm going to tie this into your teaching of children as well, because I think that, and I wonder, you have experience with children of all ages. I have a theory on this, but I'd love your insight. Like, do you find when you're teaching kids, is there a point in their life from like, however young you're teaching to 18, when the easygoingness of dealing with improv or with dealing with something that they can't control goes away. Because at a certain point in adolescence, it becomes very important to that human being for there to be concrete answers, for there to be an understanding about what things are. And I think that's built out of hormonal changes. They're getting more responsibility, and just the idea that they now see themselves as an entity separate from their parents, right? So they react differently. So it's great that you dealt with the tornado at 7, and like my child dealt with the pandemic at 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
He's not going to have a deep traumatic response to it. But my friends whose kids were 16 and 17 might. You know, where do you think of the kids that you taught, like, where do you think that break is? Where do you think they start to, I don't know, not have that willingness?
Here's what I'm going to say is that, first of all, I think it is crucial to remember that everyone's on their own timeline.
Yeah.
There's no absolutely consistent rule. I've taught people of all ages who are struggling with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that honestly, the hardest age to teach improv is between 5 and 7, because between 5 and 7, not all children, but many children are staking a claim on reality. And they're saying, they go through the well, actually phase. And no matter what you do, they stop and they say, well, actually, and I also have teenagers and I have adults who do that. And it is a thing where I have to take a deep breath. If I'm teaching in a room, or if I'm performing in a room where that is the consistent mindset, or if there is one voice that is kind of taking over with that, well, actually, and people are falling in line behind it, then I just adjust, and that's what we do. I give that kid the job of something, they can be the conductor or whatever. Everyone will say yes once they know what their job is, and they trust that they get to do their job. And you give them the agency to do their job the way they want. But the idea that adolescence is what necessarily closes things down, I think is not my experience. To me, I freaking love teaching middle and high school, because they are flexible because their brains have developed to the point that they understand nuance and they understand contradiction, and they can embrace absurdity or not. Not all. I mean, again, there's always going to be a couple people in the room who are like, "Rah!" And those people are dealing with something. And so whatever. Rarely do I get, once in a while, I will be like, okay, you need to stop because you're ruining this day for everybody. And I never want to call, again, as somebody who was so sensitive as a kid, I never want to shame anyone or make anyone feel embarrassed. But there are times when I'm like, you've pushed me too far, and now I'm a person and you're a person, and I'm going to yell, I'm going to tell you to shut up. Well, I don't say shut up that I can recall. Yeah. Last summer, I had a kid in a camp who, creative, brilliant, great kid, 7 years old, just a destructive force as far as creating. It's not his fault, right? His brain is building in a way that the rest of the children, and there was nobody else in the building who saw things the way he saw things. And again, super great ideas a lot of the time, like kind of an evil genius kind of kid, which I love. But, and I was able for most of that camp to place him in situations where he could succeed and not stop other kids from succeeding. But on the final day of camp, when we have a performance, so I'm a teacher, but I'm also a freaking director. This is show business. damn it, people are coming to watch. And so by the final day, it took me a while to learn this, that I could say to people, this is the show. The show is the thing. So, which I know it sounds cruel, and I'm definitely not, I hate directors who take advantage and manipulate people for the sake of doing it. But I do believe that that if you commit to doing the show, I would like you to do the show. And if you can't, go take a nap, no matter who you are. So, okay, so on this final day, one teacher called in sick. Another teacher had to leave early. It was just like forces were going against us. And this kid, something happened that morning where I finally said to him, I think the day before, another teacher had said, you have to just stop to the kid, which made the kid upset. And so then that Friday morning, the kid was like, well, it doesn't matter what I do. I get in trouble. Everyone hates me no matter. And I was like, oh, I know this story. I know this trip. I want to help you, but I don't have time right now. So I was like trying to find someone who could help him, but there was not an adult teacher who could take him on and focus on him. And sometimes you'll have another kid who can be the buddy and be like, let's just, build Legos or something. Didn't have that kid. So what happened was this little boy starts threatening to kill other kids. Like he has the words. Oh. And the other, it's just a drama. He's not really going to kill them. No. It's from media. He's seen the stories. And
my kid says it all the time.
Yeah, I always tell children, know your audience. I know you guys love violence. Parents are terrified, so keep it to yourselves. And
I say that all the time when I work with kids too. I go, this is a great joke that you're telling me. Would you tell it to your dad? Because he is our audience. And they're like, oh no. You're like, okay, doesn't go in the show then.
Totally, yes. So anyways, we're getting close to the show. This kid is, everybody else is on board. They're in the green. We did it at the Fallout. So they're all in the green room ready. And literally the other adults were gone. I was the only adult, and I'm on stage hosting the show. And I have a teenage counselor in the green room. She's having to, whatever. The show starts, somebody comes, just as the show's about to start, a kid comes and says, he won't come back in the green room. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Then the show's going, I forget about him for a minute. I am in the middle of conducting a scene in the show. And this little girl comes running in. She's like, he said he's going to stab me in the face. And I was like, all right. You guys play this game. I'm going to go get him. I mean, those might not have been but basically she was like, I have to, and this is the child of the child who came in to get me. This is a girl whose mother is an improviser. She knows you don't interrupt a show, but that had to happen. And I was like, this is when, I should have made a plan. I should not have, normally I trust and things go well. But also it wasn't a total disaster and it was kind of funny. I got him, I made him sit with his mom in the audience. So he was called out that it was him. And, his mother didn't speak to me afterwards and I have not reached out to her. I don't know what her feelings are. Nothing hurts worse than having your kid, being told that your kid is a bad kid or, your kid's the trouble.
It's true.
I am a parent who, one of my children no longer tells me when things have gone bad because my help is not wanted. I'm definitely the kind of parent who I just go immediately to the principal and I'm like, what's happening here? And it doesn't matter, whatever. I'm a little too much sometimes, but anyways,
it's fine. You are you. You're perfect. Don't worry.
I feel great sympathy and empathy for parents of children who are struggling to get along. I feel for the kid a little. Well, I do. I feel like I can connect with the kid. I feel like the kid and I have a relationship. Maybe it's not going great, but if we were alone in the world, it would be okay. But for the parent, they feel helpless. they feel they're getting a version of the story that is not connected to everyone else's versions or whatever. That's extreme. Whatever.
Well, no, I mean, you know as well as I do, though, like kids act differently with other people than they do with their parents, right?
Totally.
So
Yeah.
like I would go in, my kid's a live wire. I mean, like he's insane. He runs around, he screams, he's high energy, he's gregarious and all over the place. Like if they aren't watching him, he'll probably run around and talk to everybody in every other classroom. Like he's a wild kid. But apparently he's way crazier for me than he is at school, because when I went into school, like when I had his first parent teacher conference or whatever, I'm like, all right, tell me how it is. What's going on? Are you all right? Has he been crazy for you? He's a lot to handle. And they're like, oh no, he's okay. You know, and then like this teacher, you know, every teacher's got a different way. Like you were talking about theory and the way that you're looking at stuff. You're developing different ways to teach based on the previous things that you've taught and the experiences that you have and how that went. And I was just chatting with this, sweet kindergarten teacher about my kid the other day. And it was like, she's telling me things about my child I don't know. Like, because she's like, well, I attempted this tactic. And like, I really like this teacher. She's so sweet. She's very methodical in the way that she like solves problems. So she'll try something and then it doesn't work. She tries a different thing, but she's very patient with each thing to like watch it. And like, she's like, well, first we tried this and this happened. And I'm like, okay. And then we tried this. And like, when she told me how to solve, she's like, the way to get him to do stuff is not to give him stickers or toys or treats. It's to offer him a job. Oh, well, give him something to do.
Your job and do it the way you want to do it.
But I never thought of that. You know what I mean? She's telling me this. She's going to improve my entire parenting technique purely because we just see it different, right? So who's to say that this woman doesn't know that this kid is wild, that she is legitimately just like, this kid's insane. He's going to go to this class. He's going to be insane. I don't even know what to do. I'm already embarrassed before the first day. And then he does exactly what she expects. And while you're kind about it throughout, you're like very supportive and like helpful. Yeah. When the chips were down, guy was wild. I mean, like he really went wild. And so she's probably, my first reaction to anyone saying something about my kid is shame. Like, and I try to get through that. Like I try to not let that be where I then parent from, because I know that that's just me being aware of the adult world rules and thinking, and this kid doesn't know the adult world rules. Like you were talking earlier too about how you were very uncomfortable with rules because back in the day when we were kids, they didn't tell you why you shouldn't do X, Y, Z. They just said, don't do it. Right.
Yeah. I don't even mean those kinds of rules. Like, I mean, I just didn't get like taking turns in conversation. I didn't get like, I remember at one point thinking like, how did people learn if they're supposed to wear eye makeup? How did people learn? Like, where does this information come from?
Right. Before YouTube, how did anyone do that eyeliner? I don't know. I've learned everything I've ever known from YouTube. And then when I realized that I am not a skilled person at putting makeup on, I have instead found the names of makeup artists who can help me. Like, we don't all have those skills, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, but I'm sure that like if all this to say that, like, I'm sure that mom expected it, whether or not she wants to discuss it with you later, she might still be shameful. Like, who's to say she's not still like, oh God, he ruined that camp. And then he ruined the show. Did we tell you about that story? Hold on, everyone gather around. Let me tell you how he ruined the show. Like, who knows?
Good story.
Great story. So then the girl says, he's going to stab me in the face. And I'm like, what kid is going to come out? My kid. That's who. My kid. That'll be me, by the way. I hope my kid doesn't do that to you in the future, but maybe.
I think it is. That's all true. Yes. Thank you for saying all those things. That it's all people are in their own trucks. They're thinking their own things. I think for me, it's just wanting to make, even though I'm saying like, we shouldn't strive for perfection. If everyone doesn't have a good time, I feel like I've failed a little bit. But I also know, I mean, that's, I've been doing this for a long time. So I know like, sometimes it's going to suck. And so I always try to tell myself the rule of, like think about it for 7 minutes, then walk away. There's always another show.
Yeah.
There's always another show.
Or the classic rule of you can only worry about a scene for the length of time that scene existed.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, that was a 3-minute scene. You can be sad about it for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like I say to my kid all the time too. Like, I'm like, it's okay to be sad. Be sad. I go, I get you don't want to do this. You can be upset about that. That doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. You do. That's life. Sorry. You can hate it the whole time you're doing it. Just keep doing it. I go, be mad about it if you want. Go ahead, enjoy being mad. But still got to do it. Right?
Yeah. I had this, when I was an undergraduate, have you ever heard of Larry Hovitz? He was an actor. He was on, oh my God, I don't even know the show. It was like a show that was on before I was born, but then when he was on the faculty, everybody was like, he was famous for a minute. It was like a comedy about a German Second World War camp. It also had G.W. Bailey and whatever, Hogan's Heroes. And so, anyways, Larry Hovitz was on that show, and he was on the faculty at Texas State where I went to school. Oh. And he was really, really nice guy, a really nurturing teacher. And he said something that I always remembered, which was the opposite of so basically he would say, you're only as good as your last show. Like, the thing you just did is the thing which might sound negative, but to me what that means, those two ideas combined basically mean like, that happened, now we're moving to the next thing, we'll see what it is. Like, if my last show was incredible, great, but nobody remembers it, in a week. So I've got to do the next, I don't know. I don't even know I don't know that the words I'm saying connect.
No, they totally do. I'm in your brain. I got you. Part of what he's saying in my mind is the idea that like you are a building. You're building. So you're this building halfway, you're a 5-story building right now. That's what you are. As you continue to build, then you become a 10-story building. You'll never be a 2-story building again. Like you're building this thing. And so that thing, you're only as good as your, I don't know if that's what he meant, but what I'm taking from it in the context of our conversation is the idea that you are developing your skill, you're developing what you're doing, and you can only be as good as you are. So you are good. If it goes well, then you're great and good for you. Say that show doesn't go well, the next show's probably going to be better because you've learned from to harken back to call back our discussion on failure. It didn't go well. You're like, I'm no good, but realistically, it's not I'm no good. It's you have to take what you learned from there, and then the next show will be the better one because you're building your skill level, you're building your tolerance, you're building your, everything on there. We're only as good as we are in the moment, right? And then it's like when people are like bemoaning choices that they made when they were younger. And I was like, you're 22. Who makes a good choice at 22? Like, I'm so much more understanding of my own choices, of my parents' choices, because I'm older, like, because I've gone through it, right? But who's to say that when I turn 60, I'm not like, oh my God, 40-something Amy had no idea. Like, who knows, like, what I'll say. And it's about building, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what he meant, but that's how I'm taking it.
I like it. And I think it's also good to hold on to the idea of your own timeline. So we have talked a lot about, like, I've told personal stories, and we've talked about kids and stuff, which, because of Improv for Youth, I'm able to have a career. I'm able to sustain myself on improv. But is there other stuff that, or what other questions do you have? Sorry. Let me not take over the interview.
No, I was like, I thought you were leading into another story. You're like, but that's not the thing that's really most important. Like, go.
I think that what happens is sometimes when you have the opportunity to talk about yourself, I think for me, I'm like, oh, I want to talk about things that I don't usually talk about. Like, I want to share the things that are most important to me now, but then I end up repeating the same freaking stories, you know? Like, I do like to talk about children very much and what happens in those classes. And I do like to talk about, I don't know, I like to talk about all those things, but I also sometimes feel like it's just the Kristen Henn show that I just repeat, you know?
You know what, though? Remember earlier when you were talking about how it's beautiful in storytelling for there to be the same story told over and over and over? I think that that's the case in our own lives.
Yeah, maybe so.
Like, yes, there are story tropes and they continue to repeat them. Like, this thing happens and then someone saves them, you know, whatever it might be. But we do that to ourselves too. And we also pick and choose what stories we use to frame our stories, not only in our own head, but in the way that we're presenting ourselves to other people, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea that you would tell that, tell the stories that you did, even if you feel like, oh man, I keep telling these same stories. I feel like it's really just, every time you tell that story, you're telling it from a new perspective, because you're now a new person than you were. You know, think of how much reflection you've had on that tornado. And while, you know, I'm sure, you know, your mother calling you out on, we certainly didn't let you go out to that spot with him, her reaction is very much informed by the new cultural way we think about children. Like, we would never let my child get put in that kind of danger. It's like, when I was a kid, my mom would be like, yeah, go down the street. There's a homeless guy who lives in the woods. Go make friends with him. And we did. Yeah, and he was fine. And it was all right. He lived in a tent. He turned out to be our literature professor at one point in his life. And then he was like, you know what? I want to live off the land. And we were like, great. Like, but it's like, I would never do that. I'm never going to be like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I let my child speak to homeless people, but at the same time, like, it's like, you don't be like, yeah, go ahead down. It's just cultural differences. We look at it in a different and new way. I've even told stories like you said, these are the stories I like to tell. Have you ever gotten to one where you tell it and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're out of it culturally. Like, I can't tell this story anymore. Like, it's not a thing that, you know what I mean? So I feel like we tell the stories over and over to confirm with ourselves who we are, right? To remind ourselves of things that we hold on to for ourselves. The foundation of who you are is built on the freedom and excitement in accepting this wild scenario that happened in your life, and the recovery period and how long it took for things to fix after that tornado, I think is a great example of things for you to see, so that in your life as it goes on, you're like, well, we tried to fix it, but fixing takes a long time. So you like learned that from that experience, and now you take it into your adult life in whatever way. But when you're telling a story, you're like telling it to give a message. But I feel like once you complete telling that message, I've told stories where I reform the way I tell that story. It's the same story, but my effort is now different, because I feel like that lesson that I was first talking about I'm done with that one. Let's talk instead about how it's this, right? And you know, I think you should honor the idea of that. I think that a lot of people, certainly everyone that I talk to in the podcast, tells stories that are probably the same stories that they tell over and over, but it's everyone's painting of themselves. They're like, let me show you the pictures that would give you a small snapshot of what it's been like to be me. And then for me, when I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm just listening for things that you'll repeat, or the way you're looking at a certain situation. And this is not to say that I'm in my mind thinking, this is who she is. More, this is where she's at in this moment, right? Yeah. Like, I'm reacting to this in this way because at this moment, that's the thing that she's thinking of. Because I think that's where we're at. You're talking earlier about being a teacher and how you're like always coming up with new theories. I think we probably do that with our life too. I'm like, how should I live my life? Am I doing it right? Maybe I should change it up a little bit. And then we like reframe the way we look at our things. Yeah. So to turn the question back on you, not what is it that I want to know about you? I can ask lots of things, but I think if you think that the stories that you've told don't give a complete picture of what it is you want people to know about your journey, or rather things that maybe you've learned along the way, is there another story, even one that you've told before, and I don't know, that, you know, helps to understand why you found, why or how you found this path from childhood storytelling to having, directing the kids as a little kid. How did you, when you became an adult, even find or get to the place where now your whole career can be directing groups of people, leading people in creative exploration, and letting them learn and develop the ability to be in the moment? Like, I love that that's the inciting incident of your story. So then how did we get to where you're at now?
Well, I did theater as an undergraduate, and then again as in graduate school, I did theater, but I was never, as an actor, things were not ever happening for me. There are a lot of us out there we're performers, but we're not meant for scripted theater, probably, or we're not being called upon. And that was very confusing to me. And so I ended up so my undergraduate degree is a BFA in directing. And that was actually, for me, in the long run, a very helpful degree. And then I graduated and went home to Temple for the summer. And met the man I married waiting tables. We'd actually met when we were 14 at the mall, but we met again. And so he had finished at UT the year before, and we were both in that, in the mid-90s, everybody was like, the world will never be good again. We've all got degrees, but we'll never have real jobs. So, I mean, it was a thing. It was like, we'll never own houses. We'll never earn what our parents earned. So we were like, well, we're never gonna get jobs. Let's get the hell out of here and move to Europe. So we moved to England. It was good.
Nice.
Yes, that's a whole other story. But then sometime I'll tell the whole thing. But then we we ran out of money. Like, we worked, but it was so much more expensive and so much harder to live there than Texas in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Oh, and also I thought I was going to move to London and be in theater in London. That was silly. There wasn't an internet. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew how to do restaurant work. So we did that. It's kind of a romantic way to get started in a relationship. But anyways, so I came back to Texas, and moved into the apartment complex that he'd lived in Austin as an undergraduate. And then I was like, well, shit, I'm back. What am I going to do? So I went to graduate school and I got a master's in theater history and criticism. Fun, good times. And I really did enjoy it. But that's where I was introduced to creative drama, which is, a cousin to improv. And so there was a faculty member there who sort of allowed me to focus on creative drama stuff and taught me a lot of stuff, gave me advice. Still didn't really know what to do with it, though. When graduate school was over, I was like, it took me an extra year to finish my thesis. I was so lonely that when I'd get telemarketer calls, I would keep them on the phone. I would give myself a break once a day to watch court TV. There was this nanny trial. It was delightful. And so I just by the time my thesis was done, I was an assistant manager at a clothing store, and I was like, I don't know. Luckily, my husband helped me get a job at UT in the Department of Theater and Dance. Well, first in the art and art history as an academic advisor. Then I was in theater and dance, which was wonderful. It was like art and art history is fine. I thank them for giving me a job. But when I got to theater, I was like, oh, it's like when you sail over the channel from France to England and you're like, oh, I understand. Thank you. And so that's where I met improvisers. So like Michael Joplin and other people who I was like 27, but they were my students. Michael Joplin was probably 25 and still an undergraduate. But so I learned about improv from them. I really loved that job at UT for a long time, but that's when both of my children were born while I worked there. Mm. So after Charlotte was born, I went half-time. Then after Margot was born, I was basically like locking my door to nurse her and telling students to come back. Like they were very nice to me and I took advantage. I was like, I got to get out of here before I ruin my reputation. So I quit working, and because daycare is so expensive, it was like, I'll just take a year. And then, it was going to be till Margot was in kindergarten.
I understand. My kid just started kindergarten. I've only just started doing things again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first year that kid's born is just the second child, first year, you can barely breathe, right? And so by the time Charlotte started kindergarten, it was basically, I think, 2 years that I didn't really work. Charlotte started kindergarten, and I got this idea to start Move Your Tail, which was like the creative drama thing. Oh, also, I tried to do theater, but again, they always just asked me to like read scripts or work the door, and I was like, that does nothing for me. Sorry, it's helpful, and I'm glad that people do it, but that's not what I want to do. So, and I was getting depressed, and I was like, what do I do with my life? And, I was like 34, and I was like, I'm a failure. My life is over. Like, I'm embarrassed. This was like when MySpace was becoming a thing, and I was looking at what my old friends were doing, and I had a friend who's like becoming legitimately famous. There's nothing worse. And you just start spiral. And so I was like, one thing I am very good at is throwing parties and creating activities. Like I'm a great host, if I do say so myself. And so my parents are hosts, I'm a host. And so I would throw these parties for kids in the neighborhood, and we'd have these elaborate events. I'd have basically, they were immersive creative drama. It was theatrical events in my yard, and it was so fun. And although Charlotte is my children, I'm very lucky to be very close to my children. Charlotte was always, though, my most insightful, kind critic, because after multiple parties, she'd always be like, it was fun, but it's not really what I expected it to be. I was like, fair enough. So,
put that on a pillow and give it to her when she moves out.
Exactly. And so when kindergarten started, like I was meeting a lot of new people, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do creative drama classes. So I started Move Your Tail, and I was doing that. It was basically storytelling. I had a friend who was a dancer, but then was teaching yoga. So we were like collaborating, and like in my heart, I am an entrepreneur. Like I'm a planner. I'm like, let's make the thing happen. Let's put on the show. So I started doing that, started teaching classes that way. For 2 years, that happened. I didn't know what I was doing. I was figuring it out. Although I've always liked children. I had no training in teaching children. But you know what helped me was Charlotte was in co-ops, and then Margot was later, and watching the teachers. So you have to like be there. So watching the teachers, I learned so much from them. They also let me, like, they're delighted. There's a parent here who wants all the attention from all the children. Let her do it. And so, I was figuring things out that way. And then I wanted a permanent space to teach my classes. and I knew ColdTowne had opened. So, but I kept calling, and ColdTowne, of course, didn't answer their phone. And I don't think there was even an answering machine. And so I went to the free class, and Lisa Jackson, my friend, was teaching that. And by the time that class was over, I was like, oh my God, everything I've been trying to do already exists. This is where I need to be. And then I saw P. Graff do an improvised fairy tale show, and I was like, and I mean, I never looked back for like 4 years. Well, from 2009 to 2014, I was so deeply embedded in learning and performing improv. And I was teaching the whole time, but I was very aware that I was like, basically I take the class, then I taught that to somebody else. You know what I mean? Which is how improv works a lot. But the reason I was able to do what I did is because, just Alina, what's up? I always, in improv they say, listen like a thief. Look for those ends where we can get in and make the scene happen, find the interesting thing. So I always listen like a thief for business and a place to do the business and opportunities to where can the show happen? Where is there an empty space? Where is nobody programming anything? And so then I would do it. And so both when I used to get to perform all the time as an adult for adult audience, I'm an adult still, I always perform as an adult, but for adult audiences, I was very lucky because I was put on we used to have house troops at ColdTowne, so I was on the science. We got a weekly slot. Then I was in another troupe that had we had runs frequently, and then we had a monthly show. And then there was nothing happening at ColdTowne on Saturday mornings, so I started What's the Story, Steve? So I did a kids show every Saturday for 12 years. And when you get to perform 3 times a week, you get to be a lot better. And you get to, I got to do what I wanted to do. But then something happens when you've been doing it for a long time and you start making more money at it, and then also Jeff and I were going to separate. And so I had my eye on how will I make a living once Jeff doesn't live here? And so I for a couple of reasons, because I needed to focus on making more money, but then also because when you're a teacher and you've been around for a while, like you're not hanging out drinking beer with everybody anymore. So you're not making the connections you used to make with friends and peers. And so then people don't invite you to be on their team anymore. And then Science broke up, and then BBW broke up, Big Beautiful Warlock broke up. And What's the Story, Steve started to feel like a job. And I started to kind of hate it, actually, which is terrible. When I'm on stage, I'm always happy. But like getting ready to go do it, and like it got to feel like the same show every time.
It's a lot of work.
And I was doing tours. Like I did a bunch of tours, which were fun, but they don't pay that much. And sometimes I was also struggling with like, what does it mean to be a boss of the people who used to be your friends? And so it just got harder. And so I started to let the performing stuff at ColdTowne go away and other places where I was performing and focus on building the kids program. And wonderful things started happening. Like I have a relationship with the Blank Stuttering Institute. The AISD stuff really blew up might be an exaggeration. It's been a good sustaining thing. And something else that happened was I finally had enough distance from the people I was hiring. Like when I first started doing improv, even though I was in my 30s, people in their early 20s still felt like peers in improv. Not in the rest of the world, but in improv, we were ageless, right? Like we just, doesn't matter where you came from, we're all equal here. Except for that really funny guy, and he sucks because he's around forever. But something finally happened where there was enough distance, and so I could hire people who were younger, and I could actually treat them as though they were my employees rather than my friend. So I could be a little more like, actually, I do need you to be here at this time. And that doesn't mean park at that time, come in and eat your breakfast at that time, and then start working it out. You know, like I still kind of struggled with that, but it got better. And so by the time the pandemic happened, I was deeply, my business was going. And so during the pandemic, when I kind of separated out from, because I think that ColdTowne held on to, we're going to get a build, or like I'm not speaking out of turn here. My impression was that they were like, we'll get a building soon. The pandemic will end soon. And so they were at first preparing for that. Eventually they made the transition and they were like, okay, we're dealing in this new world, and they built on that. But I was like, it's been 2 weeks. I had to do something. So I was able to start building Zoom and outdoor classes by April. And so I had a whole, like it's like I created a whole other business. But I was lucky because I had like a base of customers. Also, I was able to like tap into like, again, you listen like a thief, like, oh, well, these people need this. I have it. And even if I don't have it, let me tell you that this is what's going to happen, and you show up and we'll do our best. So anyways, I went one time. But that's what it is. And I still, like, I very much would like to return to being an improviser again, being a performer, but I don't. Oh, the other thing that happened was right before the pandemic, ColdTowne thought it was going to get this new space. Like, we were going to move, and I was like, all right, I'm going to finally commit and be like a grown up and invest in infrastructure. Like, I mean, I wasn't investing, but I was going to like, because my relationship with them has always been very like a lucky partnership. They wanted a kids program. I needed a home, and I needed the culture of ColdTowne and teachers, etc. Plus, it really was my home. Like, I really love ColdTowne. And so then and I had this thought, I've always had this thought of like, where I want to go is eventually to create this larger performance space where I can produce and perform and direct this specific kind of theater that I dream of making happen. And I sometimes think, oh, that will still happen. Like, I always think there's plenty of time, but then other times sometimes I'm like, do I care anymore? I don't know. Like, you know, like the pandemic was good for me, and that it made me think, because I think I always thought I have to be in Austin. This is where all of my stuff is. But I started thinking, well, maybe I could go somewhere else. Well, I probably won't, but anyways, that's my story.
I feel like every time you go through something where you get over a hurdle, you know, that you didn't know you could get, like when you said, when you separated from your husband and you had to figure out how to live life on your own again, and even the moment when you took time off to take care of your child and then you had to reintegrate into the workforce again. These are moments, also the pandemic, these are all moments where life circumstances pull you out from the trajectory that you're trying and kind of shake up your view of what it is that you're looking for. Even in the same way that, like, just now you were like, now I feel like I could probably do this, but is that what I want to do? And I feel like that happens to us so many times that we get ourselves to the edge, to almost the top of the mountain. And then you're like, turns out this wasn't the mountain I needed to be on. How can I get to that mountain? Like, and then they're like, well, you got to go back down and then go up that one. And you're like, seems less fun. Can I invent the helicopter? And they're like, you could. And they're like, I'm gonna. You know what I mean? So it's like you find a way, like, once you get to a point. And the other hard part about like life, and maybe it's our culture, I'm not sure, I haven't deemed this as particularly only American or whatever, but there's this idea that you need to finish stuff. Like, oh, well, if I said I was going to be an actor when I was 18 years old, that now in my mid-40s, surely I need to. Okay, well, 18-year-old you had some nice ideas, but not all of her ideas were it, right?
Right.
You can go ahead and do other things, right? Also, you learned, same as me, I only found improv at age 30. Did not know it was a thing at all. Did lots of theater everywhere, and then moved to Austin, and someone was like, do you want to do improv? And I was like, tell me what? So I didn't know the idea of how to perform that way. I thought I was never going to perform again because, like you, I keep getting offered admin jobs. And I'm good at admin, and I like admin, but it's not really what I got into theater to do, right?
Yeah.
I get that I'm good at that. Thank you very much. But I want to be on stage and get some attention.
Yes. Well, and and that's a huge part of it, but also just you're a creative person. You have you have insights that are worth sharing, and you want to share them in an interesting way that express like the connection that art gives us and that creating gives us is its own thing. And when you have to have it, you don't stop till you get it. And yes, I do feel satisfied when I finally get the ticketing information posted. Good job me being an admin for a minute. But like, it's also like, I can't believe I actually took care of it. I probably only took care of it because I was afraid. Like if I didn't do this, everything would fail. So gotta do it.
Mine is always like, if I don't do it, no one else is going to. So I might as well do it. I always make my to-do lists in priority of, can I give this to someone else? It's like, okay, top 3 things are things I have to do. No one else can do. I have to be the one. And then the things later down on the list are like lower priorities, and also things where it's like, okay, if I can't finish this, I can be like, hey, can you help me with this thing? And that person can easily handle the thing that I'm trying to do, right? It's such a, I feel like honestly, like it's my new like mom knowledge. Like now I have too many people to take care of, too many things to do. Also, my job is as a staffing person. Like I give people jobs. So I then have all those people who have questions for me as well. And so I'm like, you know what? I've got a few skills. I got a few things I have to do. And then everybody else, I will get them. Would you like a job helping me? Great. There you go. Like, and then because I just can't. I can't do everything, right?
That's such a healthy approach. Good job.
I'm healthy today. Let's say that. All right.
Yes.
See me, audience. Listen 3 episodes from now. I'll be having a crisis. Who knows? Oh man, you never know. But I'm open to whatever that might be because, like you, I know that I'm capable to handle it when it goes crazy. I know that in those moments when everything goes totally insane, that I will be able to connect to who I am and what I'm looking for in the moment. Sure, I'd like to perform right now. Wouldn't it be lovely if I were the lead actor in a television series? Oh, it would be great. I'd love it. But maybe I'd love it. I don't know what it's like. But at the same time, like, okay, what I try to distill down to like, okay, well, what's the essence of what you're looking for here? Is it basic attention? Is it just, is it acting somebody else's words? Great. These are things you can do without the traveling up the mountain of how do I get into television, right? So it's,
And so that's the thing too, is finding the way to do the thing you want to do, no matter what other people are telling you. You know what I mean? Like if no one's giving you the part, then you put the show on, and then it's just, that is the thing that earlier you said that perhaps would be a question. So I've been preparing it. My answer
give it up.
That I always would advise people. It's that if the things that you want to happen aren't happening, that's not a judgment on you. That just means the person in charge of distributing their thing doesn't have time. Whatever. All I'm saying is rent the space, put on the show. And even if it sucks the first few times, keep doing it. And don't always invite your friends because they'll get sick of going. Wait until you're better.
Also, your friends are not the people who are going to make you better. Like, your friends are not the ones, it's like, I always say, people are like, will you come to my, like recital show? And I go, I'll go, but I'm a heavy laugher. You know that I'm just here to you can't trust this. I'm a 101 teacher. I'm there to be like, you're great, you're doing it. What are you doing? You know what I mean?
My mother came to. I do a yearly youth comedy festival called Excuse Absence Comedy Festival, and my mom had never come, I don't think, and she finally came last April, and she stayed for the whole day. And so in the room, there's me and Paul Normandin, who's the nicest person in the world, an improviser in town, and other known improvisers who I think I introduced my mom to some of them. Anyways, at the end of the day, she said, do improvisers learn to laugh in a specific way in the audience? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I mean, other people were laughing, but the improvisers were laughing really loud and a lot. And I was like, yeah, we just do that. It's our way of supporting from the house. I know. I laugh like this. And I know I do it because Charlotte has told me. Charlotte will turn to me and go, I'm like, oh. She loves me.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, me too. People tell me they can hear me laugh from far away. Oh, yeah. Like they'll be like, oh, I was in the lobby and I heard you were in the show.
I knew you were here.
Yeah. I was like, well, to the point where there are so many people that I taught level 1 to for so many years that my laugh is like ingrained in them the way you can hear your parents laugh. You know what I mean? Like from far away, they're like, hey, I heard you. Like, oh, what's up?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, but I think, well, the best audience for an improv show are other improvisers. I'm sorry. The rest of you guys, it's great. Thank you so much for coming. We're so happy you're here. But really, the improvisers in the audience are who we're doing this show for. Like, they know what's up. They know what's going on. You know what I mean? I feel like so many of us have let go of the idea that improv has to be, the whole, like, everyone's so surprised we're making it up. Like, they're not surprised anymore. Like, they get it. Especially this town. Like, if you live in this town, like, well, this is a big town in a way. To the point where it's like, if you don't know that there's 6 improv theaters going on, like right now, like, by the way, how did you miss that? But I get that there's so many different circles in town. Like there's sometimes I see huge crowds of people riding bikes down, and I'm like, how do you become a bike person? How does that happen? Well, that's just a cool scene that this town provides, right? Like, turns out if you're a bike person, tons of your friends are here. They're dying a bike with you down the road. Like, there's so many different things in this town. And you're in your niche, you think you know what's going on. But we're all there for one. I mean, improv is built on the idea of being there for one another. So, like, when we're doing the shows, we're doing it for each other. We're doing it for other improvisers. It's like, come over from the other show and laugh for us because we know you get it. You know what I mean? Like, so funny.
Yeah, it is. It's more of it is collaborative beyond just the performers on the stage. It's the community collaborates to create this thing and lift us all up together and find the funny or find the true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay, improv.
That's also why I always say that Austin is a magical wonderland. It has its ups and downs. There's a lot of trouble. I'll warrant you that. But if there are hundreds of improvisers in this town, and the existence of them improves everything.
Yeah.
Like, they're pure, they're kind, they want to yes and your life. Like, you're okay. It's going to be good. You probably work with one right now. All right, final question. You have been so great with your time and sharing stuff. But I want to know, you're giving of yourself all the time. You're providing a resource for all of these children and their parents and creating these things and directing and building festivals and whatnot. What are you doing for yourself? What do you do to try to fill up your own cup?
I have a partner, a romantic partner who I spend time with and who I really adore and appreciate. He is someone who always wants to find a new place, see a new thing. Those lately tend to just be new dog parks and breweries, but it's still a lot of fun.
We got a lot of those too, guys.
Yeah. So I really appreciate him and getting to spend time. It's wonderful to be an adult and have a partner who is truly a friend and who also can give you feedback and can and we don't live together. He has his own house, I have my house. So the other thing is having a home that I oversee, that I can do whatever I want in. I have 8 million pets, which is ridiculous. In my front yard, at the beginning of the pandemic, I set up a gazing zoo with chicks and rabbits, and that's still going. So I constantly have little kids and families and lots of elderly people who come alone. And I think they all think they're the only ones who come. And they all feed the rabbits. It's so much fun. I love that. And of course, my children I love dearly. They are, Charlotte's off at college now, and Margot's a senior in high school. Margot's only here every other week. She goes to her dad's. And so it's really interesting to become a person after, you're still in it. But, when you're in that period of time where literally you're in a bed with another adult, 2 little children, and a big dog, and the cat's pissed off because he's not up there. To go to a time in your life when you're like, I'm the only one here, I can do what the hell I want. It's great. Yeah. I'll put these glasses wherever I want to put these glasses. and learning to take care. It's been several years now. Since 2017, since Jeff moved out. But learning, and Jeff is a great guy. This is nothing against Jeff. Delightful person, wonderful father to our children. But I love having my home. Yeah. And I like listening to music and singing obnoxiously, and I love, and I have a bunch of toys in the front yard, and I like to curate the toys. There's all these decoys my brother used to hunt, and then he quit. He's like a hobby person, so when he quit hunting, he still had according to him, thousands of dollars worth of these plastic ducks. And so they were in my mom's attic for years. Don't ask why they weren't in his. And my mom was she kept asking him to take them, and he never did. So I was like, can I have them? And she was like, yeah. So I have the ducks. And also geese. And so anyways, I like to make a little world that people can walk into, and I can walk out and say hello, and then I walk away. I get to curate the experience. It's delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It sounds like you are a curator of fun experiences for so many people.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. It seems to be the theme. So when you said the phrase, I like to curate, I was like, yeah, that's what you've been saying the whole time. Yeah. Since the moment that, even before this, but it makes me think of the moment when you're in grad school and you got introduced to creative drama, and then that was curating an experience, and it's from then on, and then eventually you found improv, which is again another experience to be curated, to festivals, to these kinds of things. It's probably the healthiest way to be a controlling director.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's so freeing to not control for a little bit in improv, but so hard to break the habit. To allow yourself to be caught up in the wave of what's happening. It's very unusual for me. So when it happens, that I'm not driving the freaking, I hate being a control freak. It's better, but I also love it. You're right. It's, I don't know. It's the best place for a controlling person to be, because they have the chance to let go sometimes.
Dickens had it right. It's the best of times. It's the worst of times. I mean, it's great to be controlling. It's bad to be controlling. You know what I mean? Like, we all have character traits that gone wrong could be terrible, but as long as we find a way to use them in a positive way, I feel like that's good. What director isn't controlling? They're literally telling you what to do. But we like them. We like that they tell it. Please, sir, tell me what to do. Okay. You want me to move to the left of the stage? Got it. I wasn't sure where to go. Like, there are moments when you want to be the leader, and then there are moments when you don't. I mean, and in the early stages of being a mom, I feel that hardcore, because sometimes I'm like, I'm tired of making decisions for everyone. Everyone needs to make their own decisions. Mom's going away now. Like, because there's just so much of like, I'm like a taskmaster sometimes, where I'm all like, we're gonna get this done, let's go, come on, getting him to school every morning. Put your shirt on. Why is your shirt not on? You're holding it in your hand, just put it over your head. Like, all sorts of all sorts of controlling stuff. And then I'll be like, God, I hate it. But it's really just, it's like a threshold thing. You do it in a good way, and if it pushes past into that negative place, you'll know, because you'll start to hate it. You'll be like, ooh, I don't like, what am I doing? Why? I mean, people who are attuned to that kind of thing. And I think you're attuned to that kind of thing. So you're nailing it. You're nailing it. The word controlling has has rough connotations, but it's okay. It's okay. Definitely. Oh, man. Kristen, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. What a whopper of an episode this is. Everyone who's listened this far, by the way, you're my favorite. I just want you to know, if you're here and you're hearing me say this, know that my heart loves you more than the others. Okay? Anyway, I just like to put it, when an episode's long, I like to make sure to give a little shout. Like, if anyone's making it all the way through, they love me. I love them. Like,
the best fan ever.
If you're here, your family, right?
You can start a fan club, and you can have like a contest. And there could be, if they can say the final thing. Oh, but you have to have it like at a different marker every week, because if it's the same, people will cheat to get the prize. And I don't know what the prize should be. Oh, the prize is they get to be on the show.
Oh, no kidding. Okay, if you're a person that's listened this far and you haven't already been on the show, just call me. Yes. Seriously, at this point, just call me. You can be on the show. Though probably the 3 or 4 people who are listening right now have already been on the show. Those are the best listeners. That's why I keep making new episodes, to get more listeners. That's pretty much why. It's a long game, but I'm going for it. Kristen, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for giving us your time, telling your stories, and like going through all of this amazing like exploration. Like, you've really taken the journey with me, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you have great insight. I appreciate your connecting of the ideas and naming the things. Good job, Amy.
Thank you for listening to Yes But Why podcast. Check out all of our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com, or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.